Let's knit one of these chunky little fashion bags. I made these using just my hands and some giant yarn. No needles or tools required. Even better, they work up super fast. I filmed myself making almost this entire bag, and I only had about 20 minutes of total footage to go through. Disclaimer, this is not a very practical bag. It doesn't close, it's not sturdy, it's basically a glorified cell phone case. But it is so cute, you can just do it for the fashion, right? So the key to making one of these bags is getting the thickest yarn you can get your hands on. I'm using some pricey high-end merino wool from Jocked, because I got it on sale 3 years ago, and this is my job. But I'll have some perfectly suitable budget options linked below that work just as well. So starting right at the end of your yarn, fold it in half, twist, reach through the twist to pull up a loop and make a slip knot. Adjust your loop to about 1 inch tall, and that's the size of each stitch that we'll be shooting for as we make this bag. Then reach into your loop and pull a loop through with the yarn coming from your yarn ball. And continue pulling loops through loops until you have this little chain. 6 loops long, plus the live stitch hanging out at the end here. So locate your live loop and the chain that it's coming out of, and in the next chain, work your fingers under there and pull up a new stitch. Reach under one leg of the next chain and pull up a stitch. Be sure to pull on the left leg of your stitch to make sure you're only taking yarn from the yarn ball. Any tension on the right leg of the stitch can unravel the stitch next to it. So as you're pulling up stitches, think about only pulling from the yarn ball. Continue pulling up a loop in each chain. You'll have a total of 6, counting that first loop from the other end. Now we're going to come around and do the same thing on the other side. Pulling up a stitch to match each stitch that you just made. I've made it to the end and I've got 5 pairs of loops. To make a matching loop for this guy here, I'm going to work into that last chain again. And now I have a total of 12 live stitches. What we'll do now is pull stitches through each of these loops, working around and around. Just as before, aim for 1 inch tall, and be careful not to put tension on the right side of the stitch as you work around. One thing to look out for is not to get too big of a gap between your stitches. This will create these ladders. So how I fix that is before I pull up a loop, I'll smush my stitches kind of close together so that when I pull up my stitch, it's kind of bridged that gap. The other thing to look out for is twisted stitches. This can happen as you come upon the next stitch to work into. It might get a twist in it, so you want to make sure to untwist it to get that upside down V shape and pull your next loop up from behind. If you do pull through a twisted stitch, it'll look like this. And let's say you're working along and notice a twisted stitch a few rows down. You don't need to unravel your whole project, you can just pull out the stitches in that column down to the twist. Untwist it, and then pull those ladders from the undone stitches through the loops. So just work around and around in this quick, satisfying project. I was really surprised at how fast these worked up. Because of that, I think it would be a great item to sell in an Etsy shop or at craft fairs, because you can make a lot of them quickly, and you don't have to wind up charging too little and paying yourself peanuts per hour, like what can happen with some projects that take longer to make. So the number of rows to do is up to you. I ultimately went up to 10 rows for my green bag, but this deep blue one was only about 7 or 8 rows. And I think I like the smaller size a little better. I just had way more green yarn and I didn't want to have to cut any of this beautiful merino wool. But when you do settle on a length, just kind of mush and mold the bag to help it find the squared off shape that it naturally wants to take because of the starting chain. And then you're going to want to find the stitch column that lines up with the corner of the bag. The stitch at the top of that column is where we want to end at with our working yarn on the last round. So I'm going to work over to that stitch. And you'll need about 2 feet of yarn left over with a tail like this. And take the end of that tail and thread it through the next stitch. And pull it all the way through, without unraveling the last stitch. Into the next stitch, thread the tail and draw all the way through, and go ahead and do that for every remaining live stitch. What you'll create is a drawstring at the top of your bag, and I like to draw it all the way closed and then open it back up a little and finesse the stitches around on the drawstring to get them evenly spaced. Then find your closest corner stitch column, and in the very top stitch here, we're going to start to make the handle. Poke into the stitch and pull up a loop with the tail, like so. Then pull a loop through that loop. And just like the starting chain, make about 9 chains, pulling loops through loops, or until you run out of yarn. To attach it, find your corner stitch column on the other side, and into the top stitch on that column, we're going to line up the last loop of the handle and overlap them, and pull your tail through both stitches. Then insert your tail down into the center of the stitch below. And to secure the tail a bit, I pull it through the center of the stitch to the left, and then back through the center of the stitch again. And with this chunky wool, that's enough weaving to keep it from going anywhere. Just to add a little pizzazz, I clipped a pom-pom to the side, and I think adding the metal hardware especially really elevates the bag and lets you know that this is a showpiece. So there you have it, a very fashionables, chunky mini bag that you can make in 30 minutes or less. I hope you like this tutorial, and let me know if you like these kind of quick, no-tools projects, and I'll make some more. It was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!